Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamstra Shri Rupam Sagratam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamstra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to the Nectar of Devotion study. So today we'll be discussing the second part of the introduction. So the introduction contains 3 parts: the Mangalacharan, the overview of the contents, and the definition of pure devotional service. And last time we discussed that the Mangalacharan has 3 parts to it, offering the objective of the book, offering obeisances, and also blessings to the reader. And Rupa Goswami defined the objective of the book as Krishna, as the reservoir of all rasa. He offered obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to his spiritual master Sanatana Goswami, and to all the great acharyas by glorifying them with his analogy using the shark. And then he offered a benediction that those who study this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu will be protected from any other philosophies, will be undisturbed in the practice of bhakti, and so one can remain fixed in such a way. So the second part of the introduction covers this definition of pure devotional service. And first, we must understand why this is so important for us to understand. Because pure devotional service tells us what we should be doing in order to have it considered pure bhakti. And pure bhakti, pure devotional service, is what will help us make rapid progress to our goal of Krishna Prema. So we need to understand what is pure devotional service and how to do it. And also what is not pure devotional service, so that we can have a very clear understanding. So this whole book explains how to perform pure devotional service and what results from it. And we know, or we will learn, that it is only pure devotional service that will take us very quickly to Krishna Prema. So we have to know what it is and what it is not. Because mixed or impure or alloyed devotional service has more limited results. So by having this clear definition, we'll know what to do and what not to do to achieve our goal. So Srila Rupa Goswami is beginning by giving us this definition. And by having a clear definition of bhakti, we also will ensure that we are not cheated by someone maybe claiming to have a better answer or a better practice. Sometimes even our own mind tries to cheat us. Oh, what about doing this? Or what about doing that? What's the harm? So by having a clear understanding of pure devotional service, we'll ensure that we'll not be cheated. And, sometimes we pursue spiritual processes that meet our own desires. It's like going to the doctor, and the first doctor says you should, follow a diet and exercise to be healthy. I say, I don't like that, so let me go find another doctor. And we go find another doctor, and we keep searching doctors until one says, you know what, don't worry about all that. Just do whatever you want. You'll be fine. I say, oh, this is a smart doctor. This is very intelligent. He knows. So like that, sometimes we pursue, different ideas based on what fits our desires. But Srila Rupa Goswami is saying and guiding us that you pursue activities that fit this definition of pure devotional service, because that is what will give you your desired result. So in this way, he's giving us an exact definition of what to do and what not to do, and so that we can become expert. Borojan Prabhu in his class gives us, the example of, if you want to go and buy gold, you want to be a gold buyer, you need to know what is gold, inside and out. Otherwise, you may come back from the store with a piece of brass, not knowing the difference. So by understanding very clearly what is pure devotional service, we'll not be cheated, and we'll have firm faith in what to do. So that is why this definition of pure devotional service is very, very important to us. It is the seed mantra of this entire Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. From this mantra, the rest of the nectar of devotion is built upon. So this is one of the most important verses that we'll study. And the verse is Anya Bilashita Shunyam Gyana Karmadi Anavritam Anukulyena Krishna Nushilanam Bhaktir Uttama. The highest bhakti, Uttama bhakti. So the translation is, when first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy, and fruitive actions. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably, as Krishna desires. So we're going to take the rest of this session to unpack this verse. It is so complete and so perfectly composed, and it is structured very, very intelligently. And so and by understanding it in detail, we'll have a firm foundation to know what is pure devotional service and make sure that we can remain fixed on the path and not be cheated. Right? So the basic summary is pure devotional service is an activity with the intention to please Krishna without any ulterior motives. Srila Prabhupada summarizes in the introduction, quote, first-class devotional service is known by one's tendency to be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, serving the Lord favorably. So this is definition, very, very complete. And it has both positive aspects and negative aspects, meaning things to do and things not to do, to avoid. And this is very, very important. Because if I tell somebody that you should eat prasad, that is a positive instruction, eat prasad. But then if I don't include that also, don't eat anything that's not offered to Krishna, then when I happen upon a carrot or a potato or an apple, I may say, well, he said eat prasad, but I can eat this too. So by giving what to do and also what not to do, the instruction becomes complete. Like if you tell a child, eat fruits, but don't eat mud, then it's complete. So like this, Rupa Goswami is giving us the positive and things to avoid aspects to begin to practice pure devotional service. And we're very, very fortunate for that. So first we'll discuss the secondary characteristics of the verse. Those are the first two lines of this verse that are explained. They're called the Tatashta Lakshana. And then we'll discuss the primary characteristics, the Swarup Lakshana, which is the last parts of the verse. Okay, so we'll discuss the secondary characteristics first, and then the primary characteristics second. You may wonder why we're doing that, but we're going to follow the order of the verse. So the section of the characteristics of the secondary characteristics have two components. This Anyabilashita Shunyam and the Jnana Karmadi Navratam, which means Anyabilashita Shunyam, without any material desires, and Jnana Karmadi Navratam, which is bhakti should not be covered by this philosophical speculation or fruitive pursuits. So we'll now discuss each of those in detail. So this Anyabilashita Shunyam, in essence, it means free from ulterior motives. Anya means other, Bilas means desire, and Sita means material. And Shunyam means without. So we should be free of all material desires. Okay? But the clarification here is that it is without material desires. It is not that we can have no desires. Right? So the word Sita adds the point that material desires should be avoided, not all desires. And we can then start to understand, well, what desires should we have or can we have? And because the soul is active, we must have some desires. So Anyabilashita Shunyam is being very specific in saying we should be free of material desires, but we should try to cultivate spiritual desires. Spiritual desires like, I desire to have faith in the chanting of the holy names. I desire to have some understanding of the love of Krishna, of the attractiveness of his form, pastimes, names, and qualities. I wish to have some attraction to hearing. Like that, we can cultivate very good desires for the purpose of practicing pure devotional service. So this Anyabilashita Shunyam, it refers to material desires. Right? And we have many examples of material desires. I practice devotional service so that I may get some wealth. I practice devotional service so that I may get some fame or strength or relief from some difficulty that I may be in. Maybe I'm in some distress. Like Gajendra was praying to Krishna for help to be saved. So this is considered with some motive. Dhruva Maharaj's worship initially was not in a mode of pure devotional service because he had desire to have a giant kingdom. So like that, we should be mindful that our devotional service should be free from these ulterior motives, these desires. Even wanting liberation. I want to be free from birth, death, old age, and disease. That is a motive. It is subtle, to get out of misery. So the devotee of Krishna is only focused on serving Krishna and knows everything else will take care of itself. So always seeing under the protection of Krishna, there is no concern. And that is we see in the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was not praying for help when he was being attacked and tortured and tormented. He was simply meditating on Krishna, not asking to be saved. That is pure devotional service. And we know we don't have to ask. Krishna will come and protect. That is his love. Right? So we should be free of all desires, certainly gross sense gratificatory desires, material desires, wealth, and other things as the purpose for doing bhakti. And we should work to also eliminate the subtle desires, things like, liberation or desiring to have, freedom from these difficulties or distress. But remember, Krishna considers those who come to him with some motive still as very pious. In the 7th chapter, Krishna says that if you come to me in the mood of needing money or in distress or you're curious or you're wise, the arti, jignasu and jnani, that you're still pious, because ultimately by coming to me, by worshiping me, by the practice of bhakti, you will purify from these desires. So we should remember that our goal is to purify from these desires, and thus it'll be anya bilashita shunyam. So the second aspect of this secondary characteristic is jnana karmadi anavratam. So our bhakti should not be covered by these two things, this philosophical speculation or fruitive pursuits. So this jnana, right? This jnana is referring to this monistic or impersonal philosophy, this idea that we are one with God. This is not knowledge, jnana about Krishna and his devotees and his pastimes. That is not what is being suggested here to avoid. What is suggested to be to avoid is the philosophical speculation. And Srila Prabhupada kind of guides us to what that means as this impersonalist or monistic philosophy. Right? And also, jnana, knowledge, can become, should never supersede bhakti. Jnana, knowledge, brings us to the practice of devotional service. Sometimes we can get buried in knowledge. And thus Krishna tells Uddhavji in Srimad Bhagavatam that he should acquire enough knowledge to know that he should surrender to Krishna and practice bhakti. And after that, renounce all knowledge. Renounce all jnana. Because otherwise we can spend our whole life trying to acquire more and more and more knowledge, but not begin to practice it. So the point of knowledge is to bring us to the point of practicing loving devotional service to Krishna, to render service to Krishna. So once we have understood that, jnana can also be renounced. And then the second aspect here is karma, karmadi, that we should be free of all fruitive results. This is the karma kanda processes, all the rituals within the Vedas. We should understand that we are trying to transcend those processes. Doing pure devotional service, for some good wife or good husband or good children or health or money. And these things, again, should be avoided. These rituals that produce these results are not within the realm of pure devotional service. And they are not favorable for developing pure bhakti. Because those fruits may distract us from the ultimate goal. So even in devotional service, these things tend to creep up. I don't need money. I don't want, nadanam, najanam, nasundarim. I don't need money or, women or beautiful forms or followers. But we start to, want things even in our devotional service. New laptop, new car, new this. And sometimes we can rationalize it as being used in the worship of Krishna. So these things are needed, are very useful, but we should try to be very honest within ourselves, reflective, introspectively. And it is not for us to judge someone else, because what is lavish for one may be very simple for another. So this position is difficult. And the hardest thing to remove in these desires is this desire for prestige, honor. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Amanina manadena, no desire for respect. Because it's tricky. Because within devotional service, they come up. We do our service, but deep down there's a desire for some status or position. Oh, now I'm a senior devotee. Like this, these things creep in. The more overt. Okay, I don't watch movies, I'm not going out and eating in restaurants, so I'm in pure bhakti. Those are easy to see. But sometimes there are these subtle forms of desires. We do our devotional service for the purpose of being recognized, for the purpose of achieving some position, some status, some recognition. So we should be, mindful how to rid ourselves of these very subtle desires as well. And Rupa Goswami is going to show us how to do that. But we should be mindful of them because they're hiding in our heart. And we remove them by focusing on them, by identifying them, and focusing only on the pleasure of Krishna. So that'll bring us to the next set of characteristics of this verse. But in essence, we want to be free from these three things: material desires, this monistic philosophy, and the fruitive results. So we may be engaged in bhakti, but it is only pure if we don't have these three things. So, and the best way to get rid of these desires is association with those who are pure. Associating with the pure devotees will help bring about this consciousness within us. More on that to come. So this is the secondary characteristics: anyabhilashita shunyam and jnana karmadi anavratam. So now let's discuss the primary characteristics. And there are three primary characteristics. Anukulyana, which means favorable intent. Krishna, the goal of our worship is only Krishna. We're worshiping Krishna. And we'll discuss that and its meaning. And then Anushilanam, which is a very deep meaning word, which means continuous, active cultivation, following in the footsteps. So we'll break apart this Anushilanam in detail as well. So now we'll discuss these three aspects of the primary characteristics of this verse of pure devotional service, the Swarup Lakshana. So first is Anukulyana, devotional service. The intent must be favorable. Because just constantly thinking about Krishna may not be pure devotional service. And we have some examples of, Kamsa, Shishupal. They were always remembering Krishna. And they were never forgetting him. But their remembrance was in a negative mood. They were very envious, inimical. So that is not pure devotional service. And unfortunately, when we have envy, we actually have the deepest meditation on them. Because it pollutes the heart. We can't stop thinking of them. Okay? So the activity of bhakti must have the intent to please. And this intent is also important because an activity we may perform, it may please Krishna. But it's not pure bhakti until my intent is to please Krishna. And an example is given. Krishna enjoys fighting the demons. It is pleasure for him. But the demons are not doing pure bhakti. Even though Krishna is pleased by that, it's not pure bhakti. Because the demon's intent is not to please. Lord Brahma in the Brahma Vimohan Lila, was stealing the cows and cowherd boys. And that gave great pleasure to Krishna because he was able to reciprocate with the cows and the elderly gopis who had desire to have him as their child. So it was very pleasing to Krishna. But the act of stealing the cows and cowherd boys, or the calves, I should say, was not pure devotional service because the intent was not to please. Right? So the main point here is that the activity must have the right intent, not incidentally pleasing Krishna. Okay? And then it brings us to this understanding then, sometimes activities, Mother Yashoda is chasing Krishna with a stick, but that's pure bhakti because her intent was to please Krishna by, one, performing this mood of being a mother, this Vatsalya rasa, and also to protect Krishna in her motherly affection. So the activity was pleasing, but Mother Yashoda's intent was pleasing. Sometimes we see Srimati Radharani, she chastises or rebukes Krishna. But internally, she does not enjoy that. But because it pleases Krishna, she does it. So it makes it pure devotional service. Her intent is to give Krishna pleasure. So this pure devotional service must carry this anukulyena principle. Again, we must distinguish between intent and that which pleases Krishna. So the anukulyena means that our intent is to please Krishna. Not that he was just like Shishupal or Kamsa or the other demons. Krishna enjoying and pleasing and enjoying fighting, so now I'm doing pure bhakti. No. My intent must be clear. Okay? Now we come to Krishna. Krishna is established very prominently in this verse. That devotional service is only for Krishna. That is pure bhakti. This is the most important of the three primary characteristics. The singular focus is Krishna. And we discussed this in the prior discussions around Krishna is the root of everything. In the preface, Srila Prabhupada said, one must learn to repose our love to Krishna, because by loving Krishna, then everything becomes nourished. Like by watering the root, all the branches are nourished. So pure devotional service is exclusive to Krishna. Now the question becomes, is this too exclusive? What about Lord Ram? Wait a minute, we just celebrated Nrsingadev's appearance here. What about Lord Nrsingadev and others? So we understand that Krishna has a broad definition as well. So Krishna is not just ordinary. It is not something small. Technically, Krishna is everything. Because everything is either Krishna's superior spiritual energy or his inferior material energy. And Prabhupada explains in the introduction that everything is either one of his plenary parts or parcels, the different avatars, incarnations, or his differentiated parts and parcels, that is us as Jiva Tattva, explained as the marginal energy, or the material energy. So the point is, actually you can say, well, everything is Krishna. So does that mean I can worship everything? No, that is too broad. So Srila Prabhupada kind of hones in on the intent of calling out Krishna as the object of our worship. It says that we should focus on our service to Krishna and anything related and connected to Krishna and helping us bring us to Krishna. So there are a couple of quotes in the introduction I'll read. One, when we speak of Krishna, we refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead along with his many expansions. So here we see, of course, it includes all of the different expansions, Lord Ram and Nrsingadev, Vamana, Matsya, Kurma. And then Srila Prabhupada a little bit later further explains, saying, generally, however, we should understand Krishna to mean Krishna and his personal expansions. So Krishna excludes all such expansions as well as his pure devotees. So this includes his the great acharyas, great devotees, gurus, anyone in service of Krishna.
Oh my God, so obnoxious.
So the definition of Krishna means that anyone related and connected to and who was in performing pure devotional service may be included, including the paraphernalia, as long as it is associated with Krishna. And Prabhupada talks about the battlefield and the paraphernalia, right? So anything connected to Krishna is included within it. So this is of the primary characteristics, the second aspect. And the third aspect is anushilanam. So anushilanam has three aspects to it. It is an activity or a cultivation. It is following in the footsteps, and it is done continuously. So this is an active cultivation. It is not silent or idle meditation. It is an activity of offering our love to Krishna. So cultivation implies some activity, right? We cultivate the fields. The fields don't just produce crop. They must be cultivated. So devotional service is an activity. It is not a passive matter. And again, that activity is to please Krishna. Right? So the second aspect is following in the footsteps. What exactly to do in devotional service, in pure devotional service, must be learned. We must learn it from Scripture and follow the previous acharyas. Our own mental speculation is irrelevant. And sometimes this becomes difficult for us. But we must follow. Someone says, and Shastra says, just chant. And we say, yes, but what else? And this yes, but always comes. I want to do this. Yes, what we want to do may or may not be correct. So following in the footsteps is a critical aspect of anushilanam. And finally, it must be continuous. Not that I chant my rounds nicely in the morning and then the rest of the day I'm doing other nonsense. No. Pure devotional service is continuous, 24 hours a day. That is pure devotional service. It must be. And that is what our previous acharyas do. The sadhus do. They are 24 hours a day engaged. And we saw this in Nectar of Instruction, Sato Vrittihi. The essence of following the footsteps means to be 24 hours a day engaged in devotional service. So this is pure devotional service when it is an active cultivation, following in the footsteps continuously. And the activity is performed with the mind, body, and words. It's done with three aspects. Thus, our Vaishnava sannyasis, they're called Tridandi sannyasis. Three, referring to one who is offering their mind, body, and words in the service of Krishna. Mind, thinking always about Krishna and how to propagate his mission. Speaking only about Krishna. And using one's body as a vehicle to render service. This is Krishna Anushilanam. When we use our mind, body, and words, we should think holistically, completely. Right? And we know the most important of the activities, as Prahlad Maharaj enunciated to us, Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. This hearing and chanting and remembering is the critical aspect of our devotional service. Right? So, there are two classes of these activities with our mind and body and words. Excuse me. That it is the positive activities, the things that should be done for attaining the goal, the pravritti, and the nivritti, the things that we should avoid, unfavorable things that will lead to undesirable outcomes. So this activity has two aspects to it. The positive activities to be done to achieve our goal, and the negative activities to avoid unfavorable outcomes. So we'll see some do's and don'ts coming up later in this book. These angas of sadhana bhakti. Rupa Goswami will explain things to do, but also things to avoid. And Srila Prabhupada gives example of a sick person. Doctor will say, take this medicine, this is the positive activity, but also avoid eating these certain types of foodstuffs. And that combines to give the healing power. So like that, in pure devotional service, we'll see activities to do and also activities to avoid. Now we come to a very important point here, and Srila Prabhupada spends a significant amount of the introduction speaking about this, and so we can understand it to be critical. And we'll see when Srila Rupa Goswami explains the different aspects of pure devotional service. Of the first 5, they carry one theme, and that theme is the importance of Guru, the spiritual master, in our practice of devotional service. So doing Krishna Anushilanam, continuous activity and following in the footsteps of the previous Acharya, it is only possible by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. There is no other way. How do we know how to please, how to do anukulyena to Krishna? Do we know how to please Krishna? We don't even know really who he is. How to know what is good and what is bad. So the relationship with Krishna, which we understand again as the Akhila Rasatmata Murtihi, the source of all pleasures in that relationship. But that relationship with Krishna, how it becomes established? It becomes established by the mercy of Guru through initiation. It is the only way to perform pure devotional service because he connects us to Krishna through this transparent via medium. All of our activities, our service, they are done, they are offered to Krishna through Guru. We offer our devotion to Guru, Guru passes it on to their Guru passes it on to their Guru, and like that it ultimately reaches Krishna. How we can give something to Krishna? It goes through Guru Parampara. So this is the great importance of the spiritual master in our practice of devotional service. He directs our activities in how exactly to perform this pure devotional service and connects us through this parampara in an unbroken chain back to Krishna. Just like if I have a pipe and on the one end of the pipe is a hose spigot and on the other end is the opening. If I turn on the spigot, at the other end, water will eventually flow. So what Guru does is he takes the one end of the pipe and has it connected to Krishna. And the other end, he inserts it into our heart. And like that, then the mercy of Krishna directly flows into our heart. So without this, pure devotional service is not possible. And thus Rupa Goswami will tell us that the first 5 angas, they all relate to finding a spiritual master, accepting initiation, inquiring from them. Because this is the critical aspect of performing Anushilanam. The energy and inspiration to do pure devotional service, it comes from Krishna. And how we get it from Krishna is passed down through parampara. By Guru gives us this inspiration and energy that's coming from Krishna. It is instilled in the hearts of us. And this happens in the process of initiation. So Guru inspires us to act in different ways and connects us back to Krishna. So this Anushilanam is very, very important and is enabled, facilitated by our relationship with the spiritual master. More on that to come. And at the final section of this presentation, in the introduction, so the Prabhupada comments that the ultimate activities to perform in devotional service are the 9 processes of devotional service that are explained by Srila Prahlad Maharaj. That these Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, they are the processes of pure devotional service that can lead to perfect success. Everything else can lead to distractions. So Prabhupada is guiding us to focus on these 9 processes of devotional service. So in summary, it is this secondary aspect of the verse, the first 2 lines, that distinguishes pure bhakti from ordinary bhakti. Just like if I want to know, is this pure gold? In order to know, I look and ask, are there any impurities, any other metals within this chunk of gold? If there is no impurities, then it's considered pure. So what distinguishes pure bhakti from ordinary bhakti is the absence of the impurities, the absence of anyabhilashita, shunyam, all material desires, the absence of jnana karmadi anavritam, this monistic philosophy or any fruitive desires. So the absence of that in our practice of bhakti makes it pure. So it is the secondary characteristics that distinguishes pure devotional service from ordinary. You may have an intent to please Krishna, but it is not pure unless there is no motive. Right? So if my desire is to please Krishna, but also to enjoy great wealth, then it is like gold mixed with some alloys. And that's why Prabhupada always says unalloyed devotional service. And the second summary we'll make here is that the definition is very precise, complete, and holistic. There's no room for error. We are given what to do and also what to avoid. And thus this definition forms the foundation for everything that we'll discuss going forward in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And it gives us the marker to evaluate, am I practicing pure devotional service? It must fit within this definition. Okay? And so the summary, again, is that pure devotional service is activity with the intention to please Krishna without ulterior motives and not covered by these philosophical or fruitive pursuits. So we'll conclude with just one more verse that Rupa Goswami references from the Narada Pancharatra, which says that Sarvo Padi Vinirmuktam Tatparet Nirmalam Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. That this devotional service, when one is practicing it, there are 2 side effects. One, one's material designations are removed. And 2, the senses are purified. When we remove all the material designations, male, female, tall, dark, the attachments of material life, then we can become in pure bhakti. And when the senses purify and become attracted to the Supreme Lord, then it is pure devotional service. And so that is the outcome of engaging the senses in the master of the senses, Krishna. This Rishikena Rishikesha. So, Srila Rupa Goswami presents this verse to support his definition of pure devotional service. And we'll see this aspect of engaging all of our senses in the service of the Lord as Srila Rupa Goswami begins to describe sadhana bhakti. So this is the foundational verse, very important verse, this pure devotional service, this definition. And so next week, we'll begin chapter 1. And in chapter 1, Rupa Goswami is going to explain to us the different characteristics, what is awarded to the practitioner of pure bhakti. And that will give us some inspiration to practice pure bhakti. You can see it's a very high platform. But what will be our motivation to aspire and reach for that platform? Rupa Goswami will give us the characteristics that are awarded. And then he's going to explain the different qualifications to start and different things to avoid. And then, starting in chapter 6, Rupa Goswami is going to give us exacting angas, the 64 specific activities of pure devotional service. So we're going to dig very deep into pure devotional service and leave nothing to guess, nothing to chance. We'll have our scientific process to follow, and thus we can awaken Krishna prema in our hearts. So this is today's discussion. Any comments or questions? Any discussion we can have?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I'm not sure if we discussed on what is Shraddha ceremony.
Yes, it's discussed in the waves of devotion as well as in the lecture. But what is the question on the Shraddha ceremony specifically?
I just don't know what is Shraddha ceremony.
Oh, the Shraddha ceremony is the Pinda ceremony that we do when one leaves their body. There's a Vedic ritual that one performs for the safe journey of the soul and for the benefit of the soul. So one performs this ceremony. But the context of that point is that ceremony can be performed in the mood of bhakti, but it also can be performed in the mood of karma, the fruitive desires. So, in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada comments that when one comes to devotional service, one has no other duty to perform because bhakti is all-encompassing. So one doesn't need to do these types of ceremonies. But one may do them with the purpose of showing others that we should follow this Shastra. Maybe they're not ready to do devotional service. So to set an example, a devotee may perform these pastimes. But if a devotee does this ceremony, thinking it must be done because bhakti is incomplete, or that otherwise, if I don't do this ritual, the family will not be benefited, that is then not under the right consciousness. So that is the point that was brought up in introducing this topic in this section. So how to do that ritual in the right mood. Because, again, Krishna is the only object in pure devotional service. So to perform any other ritual would then mean we are not understanding that Krishna is the only object. And thus, by doing that other ritual, we may, be transgressing pure devotional service. But again, one may do that ritual as a means to help facilitate others' progress towards pure devotional service. So we should not confuse the two. That is the point.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji. Okay. You
Yep.
can go ahead, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, can you please read us the word anavritam in the first word?
I'm sorry?
Anavritam. The word anavritam in the first word.
Yeah. And what's the question?
Yeah, I wanted to understand the meaning. Can you please read it? Please explain it one more time.
Yeah, so I'll just go back to the initial slide here, which has the words, and in the waves of devotion, the word by word meanings are good. But anavritam basically is referring to absence of. There's nothing else there, right? So that we are free from all of these different things. That's the meaning. So it is describing free from what? The jnana, the karma, and this anyabhilashita, shunyam.
It is also meaning like not expecting.
Excuse me?
Anavritam is like somebody taking off or not expecting anything back after that.
Yeah, no presence of, not taking it. Correct.
Not taking it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a couple of questions. Actually, Anyabhilasha, that means without material desire, you said. Now, when we say karmadi, that is again karma kanda process. So now, karma kanda process, like basically the worshipping the, as I understand, is worshipping the demigods for some material desire. So isn't it something similar to that? Could you make a little differentiation between what is Anyabhilasha and then karma kanda process? Because that's also something relating that we will want to get some material benefits out of it.
Yeah. So this anyabhilashita is material desires, but we can have what we call unregulated material desires, and we can have regulated material desires. They are both material, but the distinction in the verse is that, in the Vedic rituals, there are rituals that are for the purpose of some fruitive result. So one may mistake that to be bhakti. Oh, it's in the Vedas. So when I say no material desires, well, that's a little bit more obvious. Yes, eating things I should not eat, or intoxicating, or doing other things, that's clear, more clear. But when I enter the Vedas, the Vedas say perform this yajna and you can enjoy, somarasa in the heavenly planets. Is that pure bhakti? Maybe it's some confusion. So Rupa Goswami is further differentiating that not only unregulated material desires, but also regulated material desires should be avoided. So that is the distinction. They're all material, but they have two compartments.
Okay, Prabhuji, that's one. Second one was, when we talked about the same thing, now you talked about there are desires, we should not have material desires, but we can have spiritual desires, right? But then in the audio lecture and what you said, I'm slightly confused, because in the audio lecture, Prabhuji, they said that when you are having a crisis, then if you are asking for Krishna's help, that is still considered pure devotional service. And for example, they gave example of Draupadi. When it was Vastraharan was taking place, she took the shelter of Krishna. So she was a pure devotee and she was still performing pure devotional service at that action. So now, as I understood, maybe I misunderstood, when you said that when you are asking for help, that would be because not pure devotional service. That part, could you clarify?
Yeah, it's a little subtle. So Krishna clearly states in the Bhagavad Gita that when one approaches him in distress, that is a mood of not pure devotional service, right? It's a motivated mood. But the pure devotee approaches Krishna in distress and also not in distress. So the pure devotee is always taking the shelter of Krishna. Not the the motivated person. When things are going well, I'm in the temple. When my desires are fulfilled, I'm out enjoying. And when things are going well again, I go back to the temple. Right? So the distinction is that the pure devotee also enjoys or experiences that desperation of seeking out Krishna's shelter, which is an enhancement of their love. And the most vivid example of that are all the residents of Vrindavan in Vraja Leela. When the different difficulties come in Vrindavan, that enhances their mood of surrender to Krishna as they run to him. Krishna, help us! Krishna, help us! Right? But their practice is they're always relishing the mood of loving Krishna. But this is one variety. Whereas in the developing stage or the impure bhakti, one goes to Krishna when they're in distress, but not when they're not. So that's the distinction.
That means what you're saying is, for example, basically taking shelter of Krishna in distress and always. That in distress, happiness and distress both. So then you are still performing devotional service. But if you are just going for distress and not
Correct.
And not when you are happy, then that would be considered mixed.
Yeah, you're using Krishna. When your friend calls you only when you need them, is that a pure relationship with a friend? No, but if that friend calls you when they need you and when they don't need you, then you're thinking this is a complete relationship, right? So like that, Krishna enjoys when his devotees call out to him. He enjoys it. And there is some that we don't have time to go into, but on one of the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj, when he was thrown from the cliff, the one question is asked, why he was saved right before he hit the rocks. And it is said that it was at that time that he actually called out to Krishna out of his pleasure. But again, I spoke in more general terms earlier. So that is the understanding of, it is not that a pure devotee never calls out to Krishna, but a pure devotee also knows they don't have to call out to Krishna. Any other questions or comments?
Prabhuji, I have another question.
Yes.
The word jnana here, does it just mean knowledge, or does it mean, like, as per the verse here, like, the jnana referred here is more like the knowledge to acquire fruitive results. Is that right, bro?
No, so close. The jnana here is a good clarification. So jnana here is referring to knowledge that's related to this philosophical speculation, which is in essence the monistic or impersonal philosophy. That's the knowledge one should avoid. Knowledge about who is Krishna, knowledge about his pastimes, knowledge about the different aspects of bhakti, that is very important for us. So this jnana that is being referred to here is jnana around this monistic philosophy. That is what should be avoided.
Thank you, bro.
Yes.
I have a question that this one, Prabhuji, there's a question in the homework that regarding that can be, 1 second. Does reference to Krishna in this verse mean we can ignore Vishnu, Ramchandra, Guru, others, and only serve Krishna? So basically, as you said, Krishna is everything, along with his incarnations and paraphernalia, everything is Krishna. So do we tackle this question and in that form? And basically, if you are worshipping Krishna, basically we are watering the roots we are taking care of the whole tree that way, not every branch. Will that work, Prabhuji, or something more to it?
Yeah, the point here is that Krishna, in one sense, is very broad because everything is Krishna. Either is material, apara shakti. So does that mean that anything is devotional service? No. So we have to narrow it a little bit. So we know it's not exclusively Krishna, and it's not so broad to include everything, because everything is Krishna. So what is it? The understanding is in this reference that Krishna means here, Krishna, his expansions, his paraphernalia, and his different living entities, the jivas, who are, again, the differentiated expansions, who are engaged in the service of Krishna. So anyone connected in performing pure devotional service is included within Krishna. So that would include Krishna, all of his expansions, and Guru, and Sadhu, paraphernalia. But the point here we didn't discuss in the class, we'll discuss now, is Prabhupada uses this example of the warrior and the weapon. That nobody is worshipped in separate from Krishna. So Guru is worshipped in their relationship with Krishna, because Guru is an expansion of Chaitya Guru. So they're worshipped. The Kurukshetra is worshipped because of its connection with Krishna. The different expansions, Lord Ram, Narsinghadev, they're all worshipped in their connection with Krishna. Because otherwise we can then go off onto an astray point. So the point is that anything related and which is one in purpose with Krishna, that is contained within the object of our worship. So, is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So everybody will get perfect scores on that question. Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Prabhuji, another thing is, so the word anukulya, right, bro?
Anukulyena.
Anukulyana. So that's like, we know like it is the intention favorable to Krishna. That's the meaning, right, bro? But what I wanted to know is like, is that pure devotional service itself?
It's not pure in the sense that because I may have the intent to please Krishna for the purpose of getting $1 million.
Okay.
So anukulyena alone doesn't make it pure devotional service. It must be accompanied by the tatashta lakshana, the secondary characteristics. It must be free of ulterior motive. Right?
Okay.
That's why the primary characteristics are not sufficient to define pure bhakti. So I can only serve Krishna in an activity with the intent to please, but if I have the desire to receive something back, then it's not pure, right? So the primary characteristics of this verse don't distinguish between pure bhakti and ordinary bhakti.
Okay. So the example that you gave about Seshupal and Kamsa, that is not anukulyana, right, bro?
Correct.
Yes, because like that's not the intention for favorable to Krishna.
Correct.
So that is like where do we fit that one, bro?
It's not bhakti. It's not pure devotional service. Because anukulya. So you have to look at it this way. In order to begin to have a chance for it to be pure, it has to be anukulyana. But anukulyana has to be accompanied by anyabilashi trashunyam gyanakamari navratam. But if you're not anukulina, then for sure it's not pure devotional service. But having anukulina doesn't make sure it is pure devotional service. But without it, you know for sure it's not bhakti. But in order to have it affirmatively have pure bhakti, it must be free of ulterior motives.
Sure, bro. What I was trying to ask is even though we brought a point where we are constantly remembering Krishna, and then the difference is what is the intention there, right, bro? Of remembering Krishna, Hamsa was constantly remembering with an intent to hurt him or kill him.
Yes. So that is not bhakti.
Okay.
Even though Krishna may be pleased by that action, it's not bhakti because it's not anukulya. The intent was not to please.
Okay. So was he, that's where I'm confused. So Krishna is still pleased because they're remembering him?
No, they're pleased because he enjoys the rasa of fighting.
Okay.
Right? So he enjoys the rasa. Let's take another example. When Brahma stole the cowherd boys and calves, Krishna then enjoyed living in the homes of all the cowherd boys. But that doesn't mean that the activity Brahma did was bhakti, because his intent was not to please Krishna, but incidentally Krishna was pleased. That's the distinction. So in order for it to be pure bhakti, our intent must be to please, not, we just happen to please Krishna. But yeah, Krishna is pleased by many activities that may not be bhakti. I shouldn't say many, but some like this.
Bro, thank you, bro.
Make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else before we wrap up today?
Yeah, Prabhuji, I'm sorry I'm asking
No,
so many questions.
please, more the better.
When is an activity considered to be pure devotional service? So basically, we have to list all the criteria which will be needed for pure devotional service, right? Is that what we are trying to say?
Yeah, take an activity, whatever it is. I'm going to the temple and I'm cooking for the Lord. Now, was my intent to please the Lord? Was my object to please Krishna? Was I doing it continuously? Did I have no other motives? Then that's pure devotional service. So like that, you can analyze anything and say, did I meet these criteria? Then it's pure devotional service. If I go and, render some charitable service in an orphanage, and I'm going and my intent is to please those children, and I have no motive, I just want to do it selflessly, is that pure bhakti? No, because what's missing? Krishna. Krishna's missing. So this is what, and when we test this verse, it makes it see how perfect Rupa Goswami has defined pure devotional service. It's so exacting.
They are checkpoints basically. So we can actually analyze what we are doing, how far are we doing pure devotional service.
Yeah, it's the marker. It's the marker to know, am I doing pure devotional service? Just like if I need to know if this is pure gold or not, I need to be trained in a very detailed science of gold, metallurgy. So in order to practice pure devotional service, I need to be trained, understand in a very precise way. And what's beautiful about this verse is it's extraordinarily concise, yet complete. Unlike my presentations, which are not concise and not complete. But Rupa Goswami's presentation is concise and complete. There's no gap, no hole, nowhere you can find a opening. And in 4 lines, he's defined pure devotional service. It's beautiful. Amazing.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It was a wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes. No
Uh,
problem.
Prabhu, now when we are, I don't know whether I'll be able to put up this question properly, but I'll try my best. So, when we are doing an activity or when we are doing a service, and then we have the thought of pleasing Krishna, is that right? Or, okay, this is my activity and I'm trying to please Krishna with this. Or, when we are looking for ways and means by which I can use myself better when I go to the temple so as to be in the service of the Lord. So, what is the real thought or the mood which a devotee should carry?
Yeah, there are gradations that you're describing. The ultimate mood is how I can use my mind, body, and words to please Krishna. Right? So if I go to the temple, how I can be used to please Krishna. But not how I can go to the temple to do the services that I want to do.
Exactly.
Right? So when I go to the temple and, I want to do this service and that one, but not this one, well, then I'm not putting myself to be used by Krishna for his pleasure. Or sometimes you can take it further and say, okay, I'm going to the temple, whatever service that I'm given, I'll do. But still, I'm doing that to show that, I am a good, humble servant. See, I'm following without objection. No. That following and without should be to please Krishna. I'm doing it, the inspiration should be because Krishna is pleased, and nothing gives me more happiness than seeing Krishna happy. I'm not worried about doing the service so that I enjoy it. I want to do it because it may please Krishna. And that's the selflessness that we must develop to enter the realm of pure devotional service. Because Krishna is the focus, not me. I is not in this verse anywhere. Right? So we have to try to bring Krishna to be our exclusive focus. And of course, when we go to the temple, we may please Srila Prabhupada, who's connected to Krishna. We may please Guru or the senior devotees. Right? So they're all connected to the pleasure of Krishna. They are serving Krishna, and I am assisting them in serving Krishna. So that's where we take the broader definition of Krishna. But the purity should be, I'm doing it not to please or to enjoy myself, but to please Krishna. And the interesting situation is that the more we go only looking to please Krishna, the more we actually enjoy. Sometimes we have good days and bad days in our service at the temple, right? Why is that? That's because of the impurities in our thoughts. If we're pure to only please Krishna, how there can be a bad day? Even if the chapatis were burned, or even if somebody criticized me, or even if there was no masala for the masala rice I wanted to make. Whatever. Like, if my intent is to please Krishna, then none of those will disturb me. So when we experience ups and downs in our bhakti, we know there's some impurities in my thought, in my intention. It's not fully Krishna anukulena. Right? So these are ways for us to diagnose. Just like if I have a fever, my temper, I know there's something wrong in my body. So I got to go fix it. Like that, these are symptoms that we can use to diagnose. Wait a minute. I'm not focused on Krishna's happiness. It's okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. So when we are doing service, having Krishna's thoughts and having a thought of giving pleasure to Krishna, like in these two thoughts, like will that be again a motive that I'm trying to please Krishna, or just do a service in the service of the Lord?
No. Anya bilashita shunyam. The shita is added, that material desire. But we have to have some desire. We're spirit soul. So my desire is to please Krishna. That is not a material desire. Right? So, yeah, you have, the motive is to please Krishna. That is the motive we want to try to cultivate. That I'm doing this to please Krishna. That is surrender. Selfless love. So we want to try to, because if we try to do it with what this voidist mentality, then there's no rasa. And there's no relationship. If I'm doing service for Krishna, it has to be for his pleasure. Service means an expression of love. Right? So we should cultivate this desire to please Krishna. And then remember, we don't know how to please Krishna. So we must follow sadhu and shastra to guide us how to please Krishna. At least speaking for myself, I don't know how to please Krishna. But my spiritual master knows. Srila Prabhupada knows.
Right, so whatever service comes is like we will think that it is Krishna's will. Because sometimes you go in the temple, you feel that, okay, today I do not have any other service, so I'll do some cleaning part. And then you go and you have some service where you cannot do what you were intended to do. Then you should just take it as Krishna's will, right? Like,
Yeah. Wow, Krishna, you engaged me in this service today. Thank you. My mind was taking me in another service, but I'm foolish. But you are all-knowing. Thank you. That should be our mood.
Prabhu, over here when you give an example of Radharani, when she is, when she pretends to be angry with Krishna, she is not enjoying that, but she is doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. So, can you please elaborate on that part more, on that rasa of the bhakti?
In the sense of how the activity she performs?
No, like in sense, like she was not happy with it.
Well,
But she was doing it for Krishna's pleasure.
It's not that she was not happy with it. Maybe that's not the... I didn't characterize it completely accurately. Her intention is not that, oh, let me go and give Krishna a hard time. Her intention is whatever gives Krishna pleasure, I will do. So, Radharani's mood is so high. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains this in the final, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes this in the final chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. That her mood, her commitment to only please Krishna is so extreme that she says that if my staying away from Krishna far away makes him happy, then I am happy. Then she says, if my devastation, if my destruction and devastation gives Krishna happiness, then my devastation is the source of my own happiness. So this level of selflessness is beyond our comprehension. It is so pure. So if Krishna desires to be chastised or rebuked, then she'll do it. But she's doing it only because it gives Krishna pleasure. Not because she wants to be all-powerful and let me chastise Krishna. No, that is not her mood. Internally, she just wants to worship Krishna and love him. But because it gives Krishna pleasure in this particular rasa, she performs it. So it's not her desire. Her desire is just one, please Krishna. So that is the mood that she has, and that we try to follow in her footsteps by taking her shelter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Prabhuji,